I get hurt, lost, or die, it's my own damn fault. All right, let's run.
What was the hardest part about it?
Bigfoot is a 206.5-mile race in the Cascade Mountains in Washington. It starts around Mount St. Helens and sort of snakes its way up through the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest. It's got 43-ish thousand feet of gain, and it's just a single push. You start, and then whenever you finish anywhere from 2.5 days to cut off in 4.5 days.
The Bigfoot 200 is widely considered one of the hardest ultramarathons out there. Everything about it is, well, big. It's the equivalent of running from New York City to DC, plus hiking up and down the Statue of Liberty 150 times, all while traveling over some of the most rugged and remote terrain in the US. Fortunately, I'd be alongside my older brother Drew, who was well suited to take on Bigfoot. He's calm, analytical, gritty, and stubborn, and he always commits to finishing what he started.
Drew, I know from when you were little, you've always been very determined about doing whatever it is you wanted to do. Of course, you had to decide you wanted to do it.
You are awesome, you're strong, you're tough. Get out there and kick some ass.
When you run this race, it always makes me feel like you're a super dad, like you're super awesome.
You're so strong. I just love that I get to say, oh my God, my dad just ran a 100-mile race, and whenever I tell someone, they're like, oh my God, and I love you for that.
Drew and I have been best friends for as long as we can remember. As we headed towards middle age, we gradually started swapping out long nights for early morning runs. The longer, the better. Ultramarathons became a bizarre outlet from the demanding jobs and responsibilities that came with being in our 40s. But we also found that doing hard stuff is kind of fun. Plus our bond got even stronger as we suffered together, persevered together, and always finished together.
But I'm just proud for you that you have taken on these challenges, you embrace them, you learn from them, but also that you and Doug want to do this together. That is one of the greatest joys for me.
Unfortunately, we live far apart these days and have to train on our own. But we put in the work, and 2 months out from Bigfoot, we met up to run the San Diego 100. We really struggled during the race, mentally and physically, but it was great preparation for Bigfoot. In the last weeks before the race, we put the final touches on our training, stayed healthy, and we're excited to see each other again and get this thing started.
We're at the airport. I'm excited, I'm nervous, I don't like flying. Drew!
We were headed to the tiny town of Randall, Washington, in an area known as the Big Bottom Valley. It felt great to finally be underway.
Spruce. Big trees.
Big trees, what do you think about Bigfoot, buddy?
Big tree, long walk.
We arrived at the pre-race meeting and got a detailed but cautionary rundown about just what the hell we were getting ourselves into. To paraphrase, runners will traverse lava fields, the barren blast zone of Mount St. Helens, never-ending mountain ascents, overgrown, forgotten forest trails, rope climbs, ridge lines, and deep river crossings. But the most important piece of information, don't lose your mind out there.
In these kind of races, the one danger is losing touch with reality. So I would say on that note, if you need to get sleep, if you start to notice your mind isn't working as well as it was before, get a little sleep. So that's my advice, and then I guess you just gotta learn the rest yourself.
After the meeting, we met up with our crew for the first time, almost quite literally.
Audra and Nate, incredibly, without really knowing us, offered to come out and crew us through this and pace over 100 miles of it, leave their kids for 4 days and not sleep and sacrifice themselves in what is just sort of a, unusually kind thing to do. So we're sort of forever indebted to them.
We got our race bibs and our pre-race picture taken. We were ready to go. We headed back to the hotel and, like the night before any race, nervously packed and repacked drop bags and settled in for a long night of restless sleep. We arrived at White Pass High School. This is actually where the Bigfoot 200 ends, but today a shuttle would take us on a 2.5-hour drive to the start line. It was eerily silent. After all the months of preparation and anticipation, everyone seemed to be facing the realization that now we actually had to do this thing. When would we make it back to that finish line? Or would we even make it back? Why are we even doing this? There were so many unknowns, and I was coming a little unraveled. But as always, Drew seemed totally calm.
What do you think? Oh, yeah. You ready? This is going to be something else. Nervous? Yeah. Days in the woods, blueberries, yeah. It's like a vacation. Yeah. All right. About to start. See you in a few days.
And the home of the brave.
It was hard to hold back and not rush through the early miles, but navigating through the sharp, jagged lava fields forced us to slow down. It was beautiful, but tough to take in the views. You had to watch every step. We dipped into the forest and got some relief from the sun. We were only a few hours into the race, and we could just feel ourselves getting farther and farther away from civilization. When we started to run too hard, we just had to remind ourselves, we have 190 miles to go, and the course wasn't getting any easier. We started to get our first real glimpse of the Martian landscape of the Mount St. Helens blast zone and the side of the mountain that was blown off in the eruption 40 years ago. This portion of the course is notorious for being exposed and hot, and with 20 miles between aid stations, people often run out of water. We were headed out of the Windy Ridge aid station and found ourselves settling into a nice, relaxed rhythm. Everything felt good so far.
Oh, that's a cool view.
There's that brief window in a race where you think, maybe it won't be that bad. Maybe this will be my day. But this race could take up to 4 days, and we knew the wheels would come off at some point. It was just a matter of when. But for now, we just keep riding our luck.
Well, night one, headed out into the dark. It just started thunderstorming.
Drew's pretty much useless. Here we go. This should be an interesting, very
6 hours to the next station.
very interesting 18 miles. The next 6 hours were a battle against driving rain, hail, and non-stop lightning strikes. Our goals shrank down to just making it the next few steps. We had a 5,000-foot, completely exposed climb up the mountainside to Mount Margaret, the highest point on the course. The ascent was relentless, but if we slowed down, we'd start violently shivering in the freezing rain. Our fear of hypothermia outweighed our fatigue, so we pushed into the night. Lightning was striking everywhere, and word on course was that one runner was 10 feet from a strike. Of the roughly 150 people that started Bigfoot, 1/3 would not finish the race, and of those that didn't, nearly all dropped out that first night. All right, just slept 2 hours. Back at it. Went through that crazy storm. We got 2 hours of sleep, took our time, had our blisters fixed, drank some coffee, got pampered by our crew, and we're ready to rock day 2. It's beautiful right now, but you know, there's supposed to be rain again, but hopefully nothing like last night. The first section took us 11 miles to Elk Pass Aid Station, where we would pick up Audra for the first time to help pace us for the next 36 miles. Drew and I knew going into Bigfoot that there were major safety advantages to doing the race together. But with over 75 miles and 18,000 feet of vertical gain on our legs, and with almost no sleep, our brains were already getting foggy. So it was crucial to have Audra pace us and keep an eye on our mental state. What do you think so far, going up?
Pretty easy.
Pretty easy.
Great.
Drew, how you doing, buddy?
What's up, man? Driver's time. Got another one over less.
There's an adage that over the course of a 100-mile race, you experience an entire lifetime compressed down into a single day. As we started to get closer to the 100-mile mark, I was starting to worry about what the hell that meant for a 200-mile race. Oh, man. Drew and Audra seemed to be doing great heading into the second night, but as we passed the 100-mile mark, the enormity of Bigfoot was sinking in for me. It was as far as we'd ever run, and we weren't even halfway done. The negative thoughts were rushing in, and that night would be a long, extremely uncomfortable march in the dark, trying to keep my panic attacks at bay, with ultimately about an hour of sleep mixed in. But I just had to keep reminding myself that I was alongside Drew, and that the anxiety always passes. And it did. Starting day 3.
This is a gigantic death march today. Might be out for 24 hours.
Yep.
Mountain stream, y'all.
Tell us the plan for today / tonight.
Day 3 is a beast. We start out with a wake up 19 mile, 5,400 feet of gain section. No crew at the next aid station, so just eat and bail. Then we do 9 or so that's just rolling. Pick up Audra again. Then we do a pretty rough 18 into Klickitat, where fun begins. And maybe steal a nap, and then we head out for what's allegedly the most notorious section with 22 miles, another 5,000 feet, overgrown, lots of bugs. And we do that probably through the night. Sleep on the other side since we can't sleep at the station before it. So it should be a pretty interesting 24 hours. We'll have a whole separate interview about all the strange stuff we see that isn't actually real. See ya. So steep. Oh. That was like 3 hours of climbing. Yeah. And now we go down for 3 hours.
With over 50 hours of running and about 3 hours of sleep, mundane tasks became monumental hurdles, and we could feel our grip on reality start to loosen.
Bigfoot's paw. Wait, are they paws? What do they have? They have paws? Sasquatch? Cool. I'm gonna pause to go to the bathroom. About 130 miles in. 1 mile-ish, I don't know. I guess to the next aid station. Took us about, I don't know, 7 or 8 hours from the last one. It's really long, really hard. So we're pretty beat up, but we're gonna put our feet up, eat a bunch, get on out of there, try and get 10 more miles done. The next aid station, where we pick up Audra again, and hopefully take a nap.
You guys doing well.
All right, we made it.
All right.
Thanks, man.
Way to go, runners.
Oh, thank God. Feeling good.
Good.
Right.
Natural for the camera.
Actually got a decent stretch of road. Yeah, we're running. Day 3. Hurt. This guy slowing me down. Made it to the mile 141 aid station. Can't wait to see our crew. That section wasn't bad, but this far in the race, still really hard. But we're doing well. Woohoo! Hey! Hi guys!
What's up, team? Food is there. Your bags are here. So
Toilet is where?
it's the tent toilet.
In the trees. You don't want the bucket. You don't want it.
Leaving the aid station, we all knew what lay ahead in the next 17 miles. It was gonna be tough.
Yeah, give us a summary.
We went up the mountain that has 18 false summits, but we think we found the real one.
Oh. All right.
That'll be my new reference point for next time I think some shit's hard.
Yeah, there you go.
We scrambled down the mountain and into the next aid station to try and sleep. An hour was all we would manage.
Just started day 4. And it's beautiful weather out. Last night was really, really rough. Super cold. We couldn't sleep. But we got up and got moving in the dark, and now the sun's out for the first time. And the views are going to be incredible today. Just gotta get it done.
Between the bushwhacking, down trees, and huge mountain ascents, this section is considered to be the hardest on the course. But the views are totally worth it. We had made it through the hardest section and got to pick up Nate. With less than a marathon to go, we were in the home stretch. Drew seemed strong, and I expected to feel amazing, but for some reason, I had reached my lowest point. My wife had packed me a note for me to use as an emergency when I was feeling my most helpless. She reminded me why I was out there and why I should stay in the fight. There was one last slow, steep climb up to Pompeii Peak. You couldn't help but stop and take it in. The last 20 miles are pretty much flat with a few miles of single track and some Jeep road. Our minds started wandering, and at 195 miles into this physical and mental journey, it was hard not to get emotional. It was a lot to process. We turned into the final stretch, 10 miles on paved road into Randall. Strangely, it turns out this was the hardest part of the whole race. We had always imagined this section to be an easy chance to reflect on the adventure and coast on into the finish. But when you get there, every step is excruciating. On the road, suddenly there's no distraction from the blisters, the swelling, the exhaustion, and the hallucinations that are getting more real by the second. So we reduced ourselves to what would be a 3-hour march, folded into our own thoughts. And then, after 85 hours and 206.5 miles, we finally made it. The pain was gone, and we felt a mix of joy, disbelief, and overwhelming gratitude. Gratitude for our families and the 2 almost complete strangers that were now lifelong friends. In the grand scheme of things, these experiences are fleeting, and when they end, you have to say goodbye. So we'll savor this one, but we're already thinking about the next adventure. I can't wait.